So, I am French, and I have, of course, spent many years in France, most of my life. I am half Armenian, half French, actually, but I was born in France. So my family divorced when I was at an early age, 7 years. And my dad, his family, because the family is recomposed, so he and his wife, so my stepmother, are actually cultural Christians. So they don't mention God ever. And my mom's side, with her husband, which is my stepfather, was a mix of cultural Christians, but also atheism. And sometimes there was jokes about God. God was made fun of. He wasn't mentioned. And yeah, you had this conflict between those who kind of believed in God and wanted to justify God in front of those who were making fun. So you had this mess, but actually nobody really followed God. So it was ambiguous. On my mom's side, my mother and my grandmother actually practiced, and they still practice healing and magic. So it comes from New Age and mysticism. I don't think they actually know where it is coming from. So tarot cards, these pendulums, these magic sticks, or whatever you can think of. And I actually was introduced to this. They did it in front of me, so it was normal. And actually tried, and it seemed like it worked. So I was actually, for a time, believing it. So as a child, I was brought to go to the Catholic Church as a private school. And in France, with the Catholic Church, they offer you teachings. And I think it was actually mandatory for everyone, but I enjoyed it. So they were talking about the Bible, parables, introducing Jesus, but I had never actually opened the Bible. I don't remember having ever opened the Bible. It was all coming through someone else. So you had an intermediate who was giving you a message, and then they would interpret it for you, and it was already ready for you to take and to apply in your life, maybe. So this led me to an understanding of God, which was always blurry and vague, and I still was very eager. I loved Jesus as a child. I really wanted to be like Christ. I wanted to follow him, and I was trying to replicate what I was hearing from the Bible, of course with not the right understanding and interpretation. So I actually was baptized. I made my communion as Catholic then, Catholic. My mom was still doing this healing with energy, so I still had this mix of going to the Catholic Church, following this, while witnessing and sometimes practicing these things. So I didn't really truly understand that God was there. I didn't really think he was actually real. Maybe I thought he was real, but very far away. I didn't think you could actually have a real relationship. But actually now, looking back, I can see how he led me. I can see that through my life, he has been there. And you can see that despite all this background and influences, I actually never took it. I never carried it with me. The bag I was carrying, but actually I was trying to keep it the cleanest, the purest. So everything I knew or discovered was ambiguous, I would cast it aside. So in the end, it never really followed me. Actually, my mother took these energy things from my grandmother. And actually, I could do these things also, but I chose not to practice it. So in the Catholic school, yes, I was a Catholic. And actually, if you look at it from the outside, you can see one thing. It's actually something is missing there. If you take in the Bible, if you take 2 Timothy 3:5, it reminds me of one verse, which is this verse. It says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. So maybe generally doing the best they know and the best they can, they actually follow the forms, but they don't really believe there is something behind it. So the French society is a very, very special society because it actually links with the French Revolution. And if you look at that history and the book, The Great Controversy, actually this one, which is in English, you will see that it started from there. They reject God. They are cultural Christians. Maybe go to church once a year, but that's the furthest it goes. That's the deepest they would get involved. Of course, what comes next? Rebellion, teenager years. I was 12-year-old, baptized recently, communion recently from the Catholics, but rebellion came. I rejected God, rejected the parents, rejected everything. Yeah, so I had grown as a skeptic, maybe from the part of my family which is atheist, which infuses this atmosphere of ungodliness. I mean, they are good people, of course, but they would not follow God, and they thought those who follow the Bible are either silly or lack of hope, or there is something like this, but they would always criticize. So, of course, you think it is normal, and this is how you grow. So this is the background where I came from. So as a skeptical, I had forgotten the childhood love I had for Jesus, focused on starting life, friends, career, money, studies, and all these things. I was a year later, and I had the opportunity to go to Denmark to study. I was a party boy. If you would ask me at that time, where is the next party or what's happening tonight, I had a list ready of what, when, how, who, and how long, and whatever you wanted. I had everything you wanted. It was like the reference for parties, and I liked it. I had many friends. I had this lifestyle, but actually with time, I spent a year and a half in Denmark, and at the end, I started feeling like something is empty. There's something missing. There was a void. I actually became sick of this environment and the people, however, behaving. I was looking for something different. I just didn't know what. I couldn't tell. And something happened. I had one accident the night of Halloween. I was dressed as Freddy Krueger, if you know what Freddy Krueger looks like, with spikes and the hat and all the things, like copy-paste. And it was the first time I had makeup on my face, so to replicate the thing colors, you know. So as I was going to that party that night, the makeup, I didn't know it actually created an interaction with my body. It prevented, I only understood it much later. Years later, somebody told me, your skin couldn't breathe. It was covered either with clothes or with makeup. The skin couldn't breathe, and while driving at high speed, I collapsed. I lost consciousness, and I ended up in the hospital. I stayed there for a week waiting for results. I had a trauma, I had scars, holes in the hands everywhere. I still have the scars, actually. I still have the marks. I have holes here, still have small holes, and also here, all red. I mean, it's gone, but it used to be red, and you still have holes on my hands. Also here a little bit. And it comes from there because I think I was holding the bicycle and scratching on the floor. I stayed there for a week. They thought that, commotion, it can lead to brain damage and very bad consequences. And when they send all the scans to an expert, they came back to me after a week. You have nothing, you can go. Okay. So I went, and I looked like a zombie. I was all blue like this, and really felt like, wow, I had come out of something. I should have died. When I collapsed, actually, they put me on the respiratory machine for hours. So I was on the emergency. So actually, I had low oxygen in the blood. So I was, because I wasn't breathing for a long time, I was breathing very slowly, and I was saying things which didn't make sense. I was, it was a bad situation. So yeah, I survived from that. And I didn't see it as a miracle. I didn't think God was involved. I just thought, oh, wow, I got lucky. So I did my studies. My studies were finished. I got my diploma after a year and a half. I went back to France, and I got a job in Narva, which is in Estonia, next to Latvia. So I had a very good friend. I knew people in Latvia, and I would come to say hi. And actually, the funny thing is, I was surprised when they said that actually they would go to church that weekend, and it was on a Saturday. And I said, no, you're making a mistake. It's on Sunday. But it was actually on Saturday. So I thought, okay, I'm going with you. I was skeptical, but I thought, you go, I go. Okay, I'll go with you, no problem. Let's see how it is. So you see, I was an atheistic, agnostic, switching from one to the other, but still, there was something somewhere in the back of my mind still searching. Let's try to open this door to see what is behind. So I did that. I actually see here that it was my first encounter with the church for many years, with any church or anything related with religion. So I didn't practice any New Age, nothing. It was just like atheism. I had the rejection of God or anything related for more than 10 years. So I was in the church. It was in Latvian. It was in Latvia. So I really liked the sermon. It was translated. And I was very lucky to find a French Bible next to me. French Bible. So I opened it, and every time I opened it, actually, it was always something amazing I would find there. So with time, I took the Bible as a book of philosophy, something I could look in and know something, improve something in my life. I always wanted to improve. And with time, I started to see, wow, actually, there are testimonies from people that I can hear, how they were saved, and accidents and different things happened. The youth in the church so eager. They had small groups, small studies, and they were really believing it was real, not something that you would go to church, tick the box, have done it, see you next time, and you would just go back to your life. And it was like something you had to do once a week to please God. But here it was different. It's really different. They would play instruments in the front, sing so beautifully. Everyone was involved. It was not a one-way direction, but two-way direction. The people in the front and the people in the congregation was amazing. So it was different from my childhood experience from the Catholicism. It was very beautiful. And I actually started to realize that the accident in Denmark was actually a miracle. I had survived, and I started to believe, wow, God actually was involved. Okay, so I worked in Narva, Estonia, and I was coming to visit my friends in Latvia. So it involved a lot of driving, 6 hours, 7 hours, 5 hours. It depends on the amount of traffic, but usually it was between 6 and 7 hours. So on the Friday and on the Sunday, and of course after work on Friday and Sunday, I was tired and I had to drive back. I did it not every weekend, sometimes. So I don't think I would have been able to drive so much, but it was so many miles, so many kilometers. I was led to overspeed because I was falling asleep, and it was low speed, straight roads, and I just couldn't. So I went very fast. I would not tell you at which speed, but I was going very fast. I got stopped by the police 5 times. It was really a miracle, actually, but it didn't end up bad in a bad way. One Sunday, I left too late. I fell asleep driving, and I opened my eyes. I was going to hit the car on the opposite lane because I had switched to the other lane. And I opened just at the last minute. I went back to my lane. I nearly had an accident. Some moments later, I opened my eyes. I was going to hit the security barrier. Again, I went back on my track. And I started to really fall asleep, and I accelerated. I got stopped by the police. I thought, okay, I cannot drive fast. I have to drive at the right speed. But again, I was falling asleep. I had to go back to home to get to work. I was running out of time. I fell asleep again. And I started to shout, God, help me, help me. And immediately I had some kind of strength. And for 50 miles, I could drive. After 50 miles, again, I started to fall asleep. God, help me. And again, I had some strength and I could drive. And this continued until I reached home. I reached home, slept 20 minutes, and then I went to work. And I realized this was God acting. This was no guessing. This was God. After 3 months, I lost my job. This was in early 2012. I went back to France. So I had visited the Latvian Adventist church a few times. And I thought, let me see, is there the same church in France? There was an hour drive in Nantes, Nantes. If you want to look on the map later, it's on the coast. It's a very nice town. It's a big town. The church was so nice. I had so many questions. I felt like at home. It was really amazing. So I was attending every Sabbath, every Saturday I was going. I had many questions. They really helped, supported. I could see they were passionate. So I kept going. In Nantes, I met a woman. Actually, when I sat the first time, I sat next to her. It turned out she was actually a distant relative, a family friend also. She had never seen me, except actually when I was a baby, she saw me, but she had a feeling she knew him, she wasn't sure. Turned out actually we're from the far related. She had been praying for me for all these years, and even after that, she kept always her spiritual grandson, as she called me, in her prayers. And here I was getting very much on my own in the church. I loved it. And I chose at that time to study some months later in Sweden. I went to Sweden. I attended church, and I was very close to a group of some of the members, and they showed me the healthy lifestyle. I discovered about the Bible studies, and I started to learn, to grow in Christ, grow in the Bible, and really grow fast, actually, quickly. So I learned we should take care of our bodies. I became a vegetarian and vegan. A lot of things changed in my life. I stopped swearing, drinking, speaking in inappropriate ways, and many things I was doing. Of course, the parties were already gone since the times of Denmark. When I finished Denmark, I was giving up with this lifestyle. And I was getting studies from the pastor to be baptized. As I was studying, one day after the study, I was a little bit late to go to uni. I wanted to meet my friends, and I took the wrong decisions. I drove with my bicycle where I shouldn't have driven. I was driving on the road with tram tracks integrated into it. At some point, I see somebody, a number of people, especially a couple, wanted to cross. So being polite, I stopped, I braked, but I didn't see that my wheel got stuck in the tracks. And I remembered what happened in Sweden. I remembered that actually, in Denmark, when I fell down and I hit my head, I had a blackout. I didn't remember anything from what had happened. I only remember being on my bicycle and then being with all these tools and equipments and all these drippings and whatever you can imagine, medicines, straight like this in the hospital, not moving for a week. And with all plasters and blood and dry blood everywhere. That's all. This was it. And I felt the bike is getting stuck. I had actually a good speed. I knew what was coming. So I fell down. I hit my head on the floor. I stood up, and it was coming. Started to be dizzy, and I was actually losing consciousness. I was feeling I had a commotion again. And as I was falling on the ground, before I hit the ground again, two people grabbed me. This was in the city center. And if you look in the city center, the way it was arranged, this place was like a plaza, yeah, with a building, like imagine U-shaped, right? You have the tram track and a U-shaped just next to it. The buildings there were actually all black facades. So except if you knew, if you were part of whatever was behind, like companies or whatever, you wouldn't know what it was. So of course you had shops, whatever, the facade is clear, right? But whatever building with black windows, tinted windows was like just a wall of glass. You didn't know what was behind. And the man left. The woman started to lift my leg. She was taking my heart rate. She could barely feel anything. She was maybe in her 60s. So I guess maybe she was a nurse, and in all her experience, she couldn't find the blood pressure. It didn't sound good. So she said, she said it herself. It's looking very bad, and you're all white. So she was trying to save me, and I was bleeding a lot. So behind me were stairs and a hole and stairs, and at some point a young lady came from the back. So before that lady came, actually, I looked at that woman and I said, "I'm sorry for taking your time and disturbing you. Whatever you're doing, I'm really sorry. Thank you that you came and you took care of me." She said, "Don't worry, I'm a nurse. I come from upstairs." I thought, upstairs? And I looked at the back. Yeah, there is some stairs, but okay, fair enough. Upstairs there, maybe upstairs there. So, and I was on the floor. That nurse, the young one, comes down. She put her knees behind my head. She was wiping the blood, and the older nurse was taking care of the legs and trying to take care of me. Then the third one joined. Then the emergency came, and they came with all the flatbeds, and they actually they took it from the sitting position to a flatbed. When we have an emergency and you try to take somebody who is like all broken into a flatbed without actually hurting him and without breaking the spine or anything, without moving the spine. But actually, I wasn't aware of it. I just stood up. They looked at me. "What are you doing?" I said, oh, just stood up. I want to put my bike back. So actually they said, this is incredible. You could have a broken spine. You could have damaged organs or bones, but actually I realized I was okay. I had just this bleeding here. So I sat down. They took me to the hospital on the ambulance, and then they made a scan, and they looked. A few hours later, they told me, you have nothing, you can go. Oh, just one thing, you need some stitches. So I had a big opening here, so they made some stitches. I should have worn a helmet. Wasn't wearing a helmet. That's bad decision. And I then thought I should come back to these people who helped me and actually saved my life. They saved my life. If I had been on the floor, like in Denmark, when I was on the floor, people found me, called the ambulance. If I had stayed there long enough, I wouldn't have been here. The same thing in Sweden, in Gothenburg, I wouldn't have been here. So I went back to this building, went to the top floor, the last floor, and there was a big glass window, actually two rows of black windows, like big. Like a big SAS, like in a submarine. When you want to enter, first you have a first, like in containment, you have a first barrier and another barrier. I was trying to knock, there's no bell or anything. I couldn't really understand what is this place. And somebody came and they said, actually, this is a security place. We cannot let you in. What do you want? So I explained there is this lady. So they went to look for her. They couldn't find anyone. They said, maybe if you go down the floor, there's another company, perhaps she's there. And they explained to me that this was actually a security facility for nurses. It's a medical place for dangerous people, either criminals, people from prison, or like people who are very dangerous for the society. We bring them there for treatment. It has several very hard glass windows, so they can't escape actually. So the only way to get there is you enter, it closes behind you, then they open another gate, so it's really securized. We went, so I went downstairs. Knocked, the same thing happened. It was the same, similar company. They looked for that nurse. I waited a long time, and then somebody came and said, "Ah, yes, I remember you. I was the third nurse, because you had the first one, the young one, and then the third nurse came. So she was the third one." And I said, okay, where's the first one and the second one then? She said she didn't know. I said, all right, maybe it was the floor below, so the third floor from the top. So we went there, knocked, asked, and it turns out the young one actually was on her lunch break. So the young one existed, the second one existed, and they could testify they had been a first nurse, the one that took me in my fall as I was falling. Well, I asked the question, is there any other facility like this? No. Is there any other infirmary, nurse, medical facility nearby? No. Okay, so thinking about it, this was a secure place, which was hidden. The only way you would know about it is if you work there. So where is this first nurse? Nobody knows about her. Nobody has seen her. It's like she didn't exist. Well, we all saw her. So my idea here is that she actually was sent from God, an angel who brought me in that place. The other people somehow, maybe they were going on their lunchtime, they saw me. It was on the lunchtime on Friday, actually, it happened. So they saw me, called other people, and then I was taken to the ambulance, and I don't know what happened with these people. Where did she go? But I met these two others, which could testify this first person was indeed there. So I realized this was, again, an act of God. For the second time, I had been saved. I could have died. So I kept doing the baptismal studies, and I was baptized. Actually, before being baptized, I told my family I wanted to be baptized, my French family. They took it so bad. They told me, if you get baptized, we will deny you. We will cut the links with you. We will not talk to you anymore. They were even calling me and saying, why are you getting baptized? Don't do this. And actually, if they Googled whatever they thought they could Google about the church or about God, about Jesus or the Bible, and anything they could find negative, they would throw it at me to try to persuade me not to do it. So it felt like they really preferred that I would actually spend my days and my weekends in the lifestyle I was doing before. When actually not doing all these things, not spending money on alcohol and all these parties and all these things I was doing. I was actually going to church on Saturdays, and they didn't like it. They said, you should spend time with us. I said, okay. I said, okay, I'm not going. Here I am then. And then nothing happens. They just kept going on their duties. So I thought they actually only wanted me to be there to prevent me from going. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, so before I had been brainwashed. I went to Sweden, I studied 2 years. I only came once to visit in France because it was too expensive to travel, and I just couldn't. And they saw me Christian, not like a healthy lifestyle with many different ways, change of character, and they thought, who brainwashed you? Who did this to you? And they said, no, you're not in church. Don't worry, nobody sees you. Do this, do that. You can do this. I said, no, I don't want it. I have changed. And they couldn't understand it. It only took them actually a couple of years to really accept it. So after Sweden, I searched for a job. It took me 8 months to find a job. I went back to France, was looking for a job. 50 CVs didn't help. No matter what I could do, 50 CVs per day, no matter how many CVs I would send to how many companies and offers and whatever you can imagine, nothing could work. There was no end to this tunnel. I was really struggling. And one day, I got an email saying, hi, I have been advised to come to Ungodliness here in Kent for an interview. I thought, who advised you? I don't even remember applying for this job. So I went there for the interview. And before the interview, I actually was reading in Exodus in the Bible, and I read about Moses. And because I had just read the verses, actually they rang to my mind. And I really prayed to God and I said, Lord, please use me so that I would be an instrument. It wouldn't be my words, but your words. Please, like Moses and Aaron, if you remember, God will speak to Moses, who would tell to Aaron, and Aaron will speak to the people. So I wanted the same thing for me. But God will speak through me during the interview. During the interview, I mentioned the word covenant 3 times. They asked me if I had a team of workers, how I would deal with them. And I said, they will be my team. I will be their supervisor. I'll make a covenant with them. I'll take care of us. There will be trust. And I really was developing on this idea. They were amazed. And many times I mentioned biblical terms and even verses, and without it being really obvious, but when I reflect, it was so obvious. Actually, what I read in the Bible just came out of my mouth in the interview. So I got the job immediately. Took some time to get to England, but I got here, it was 5 years ago. And since then, I have been, even if the job have never been stable, because it's like short-term contracts. But whenever a contract expires, I would actually be brought to go to another location, to the north of England, then to the, let's say, Manchester area, then going back to France to work. Then I would always be kind of on the move on these short-term contracts. But every time, each job actually would make sense with the next job. So it means every job would become complementary. I could see it with time. Like I would do one job, then the next job would be completely different. And I didn't really see how both made sense. But the next job actually combined the skills from these both. And if I hadn't learned and grown in these skills, I wouldn't be able to do the next job. And it was a chain which continued until now. And it's still ongoing. And I can really see it's the work of God. Being in England, I started my ministry of Bibles, books, so giving books. You see, this is actually the copy, the French copy. When I sat in the church in Latvia, I was given this copy. Actually, I landed. I kept it. I gave another copy back, but I kept it as mine. And you can see post-its. I was so amazed. But actually, I put post-it at nearly every page, and the size doubled. So at every page, as an atheist, agnostic, I was looking and thinking, this is so amazing. This links history with the Bible. and I could see so many links. And I had not really opened the Bible. So then I opened the Bible and I read, and I was just amazed. And my ministry actually now is to distribute these books and Bibles to anyone who requests in the UK. This has led to many people meeting me, and I made so many encounters. And actually, some of you I met through Facebook or through other means. And I'm so thankful. God has kept me through all these years. He has saved me. And I remember many times, many accidents, near accidents, like I was once in a truck, and a flatbed truck, and it wasn't loaded, so there was no container at the back, right? I was with my parents in America, in the US, and I could see the end of the truck was actually sticking out on the train track. And I saw the train coming. I told my parents, the train is coming. They thought, it's not true. He is just talking. And I kept saying it until actually they moved the truck when the train passed. I thought, wow. I was actually believing in God at the time, so I thought, yes, as a kid, I thought, yeah, this was the work of Jesus. And I see it now again. So all these events, all these accidents, all these times, I can see really that it was a work of God. I'm so thankful. And was really living by faith in this time in UK. Actually, it's still ongoing, you see. My contract currently is ending in June. It means post-June, it's a fog, and I have no idea what is coming there. Will I stay here? Will I move to another place of England? God is leading. But every time there is something which actually is already planned, and you always end up for the good. Yes, Akbar, as you write, God first and then the others. Yes. By faith, trusting in God, and actually he takes care and just let him lead. So yeah, he uses me for the ministry, for everything, and praise God for that. Everything has been a really blessing, and even being here now, speaking to you. I'm very thankful for this, and this is the end of my testimony.